Hello, welcome to your next session of Roots Tech Connect, and this one is called What Can We Find in the 1921 England and Wales Census? And my name's Dr. Penny Walters. There's a 4-page handout or syllabus with this presentation, and if you wanted to stay in touch, you're very welcome. My email is penny_walters@talk21.com. My website is searchmypast.co.uk, and I am the author of 2 books, Ethical Dilemmas in Genealogy and The Psychology of Searching, and these are both available on Amazon in paperback or Kindle. This session aims to contextualise the 1921 England and Wales Census, which was the first census after World War I. The 1931 census was destroyed in a fire, and there wasn't a census taken in 1941 because of World War II. So there won't be another census revealed until 2051. This session will dissect the useful information available to family historians which can be gleaned from the 1921 census. The censuses are held every 10 years, and we all enjoy looking at censuses because they're a snapshot of families. You can see individuals in the context of families, neighbours, local and social surroundings, and there's a large opportunity for us observing social commentary. Let's have a look at a recap of all the censuses in England and Wales that have been published. This slide is a bit busy, but I wanted to include it, and it's in your syllabus or your handout as well. So from 1801, Tuesday, the 10th of March, the government carried out head counts. These were statistical summaries useful for government planning. Similarly, in 1811, 1821 and 1831. And in 1841, on Sunday, June the 6th, people's name, place, their age was rounded up and down, their sex, work, and whether they were born in or out of the county was included. Every 10 years, a little bit more information was included, including relationships, disabilities, lunacy, employment, languages spoken, and employment. And interestingly, in 1911, on the 2nd of April, this census was filled in by the head of the household. However, a 100-year closure rule was established after the 1911 census. All of these censuses are available on all of the major family history websites. The 1911 census, which was the previous one that we have been able to have a look at, was filled in by the head of the household. This gave the length of the present marriage and the total number of children born and the number still living. So for us as descendants, this is really very useful information, and it was useful information for the government at the time. However, can you imagine how upsetting it would have been, especially for this family, for example, where the lady had had 8 children, only one of whom was still alive. So we can see that whilst this question was intriguing for us later on in life, it would have been really very upsetting for the person that was filling in the form that day. Something that's quite quirky and cute is that because it was filled in by the head of the household, we can see their signature. So this is really very exciting that we can see a relative's actual signature. Because it was filled in by the head of the household, we can add some social commentary here. So, for example, one family felt the urge to give the name and the gender and the age of pets. We can also see that there was some social commentary with, for example, votes for women. People were saying that women could own a property but weren't allowed to vote yet. So some censuses have got information written on them, for example, this one on the top right. Sadly, we can also see in the bottom left that a man has been filling in this census, and when asked about other people in the household, he's got his mistress and their 2 children. So I think I'd be pretty cross with that label at the time. Rather intriguingly, in the bottom two right examples, we have got somebody who is at two different addresses. So we can see that there is some room for error with us looking at censuses later on in life. We've got the same lady at two very different addresses here. So, what about the context for the 1920s? It's been called, in retrospect, the Roaring Twenties. It was the post-war era. However, this was a period of huge contrasts in British society. World War I had ended and brought victory to Britain. This meant prosperity for the aristocracy and the wealthy classes, and the British Empire had reached its peak. Women had also begun to feel more independent after undertaking paid employment during World War I. However, unemployment was at its highest. So let's have a look at some of the events that were leading up to the 1921 context of the census. World War I, which was July 1914 to November 18. There'd been a flu pandemic, February 19 to April 1920. As I mentioned, there was mass unemployment, which had also led to many strikes. Because of the coal strike, there was coal rationing, and there was also starting to develop the partition of Ireland. So the census, which was scheduled for the 24th of April 1921, was delayed until the 19th of June. On the 3rd of May in 1921, the province of Northern Ireland was created. The government had basically divided Ireland into two self-governing partitions, Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland. This is a letter from the Registrar General to the Minister of Health, and we can see here some sadness and tenderness being displayed in this letter. For example, he was saying the great events of the last 10 years, thus concluded, cannot fail to impress a character of uncommon significance. The country has been unusually at a loss, and Vivian wrote, "It is thus, with a full sense of the heavy and responsible burden of service which this census will be called upon to render, that the operations now completed have been planned and carried out." So it feels as though this was written with a heavy heart. Find My Past was selected in 2018 as the National Archives' chosen commercial partner to digitise the census in association with the Office for National Statistics. 28,000 bound volumes of original householder returns were handled by conservation technicians who were responsible for very delicate tasks. These pages have been closed for 100 years, and there were little insects, there were pages with folds, some that were crumbling, and therefore the conservation technicians did have a big task ahead of them. Once the pages had been separated and tidied up and cleaned a little bit, the scanning team created an image of every page. These pages were then quality checked and they were then stored on a secure server. There are now 18,235,242 images. These were made available on Find My Past during January 2022. And Find My Past has got 3 years exclusivity with this contract. Let's have a look at the questions that were asked in 1921 census. The questions that were asked were about the population, housing, ages and marital conditions, orphanhood of children under 15, education, birthplaces, were people born abroad, occupations and industries, dependency, couples, workplace in relation to residence, and a variety of other languages such as Welsh, Manx and Gaelic were asked about. So the bottom line for this is that the information which is crucial for us now is that the age was asked in years and months, not just a single age. Children, because obviously World War I had just finished, were asked if their mother or their father, or indeed both, had passed away. This was the first time that people were asked whether a marriage had been dissolved by divorce. People were asked about the workplace, and some questions were removed. This information is again on your handout. This was the first census after World War I, and approximately 700,000 people aged 20 to 40 had died. We can see in the graph on the top left that there was a big reduction in the number of 2, 3 and 4-year-olds compared with the number of 5, 6, 7 and 8-year-olds. There were also a large number of new babies and 1-year-olds reported as the men returned from World War I. The ages and the numbers of the children assessed dependency and the number of orphaned children, which assisted in the introduction of the Widows, Orphans and Old Age Pensions Act of 1925. Something that we do need to bear in mind that because the census was taken in June, not April, many people might have been having a staycation in, for example, Blackpool, Southend, Margate, Ramsgate, Brighton. Let's have a look now at where was and where wasn't included in the 1921 census. And we've also got a map to reveal some of these places. So, where was included? England and Wales, the Isle of Man, which we can see is between Ireland and Scotland, the Channel Islands, which is at the bottom of the map between England and France. Merchant ships in the waters of England and Wales were included, ships of the Royal Navy and the British Army, and, new for 1921, Royal Air Force units who were stationed overseas. So all of these were included. In the England and Wales 1921 census, Scotland has a separate census, and the Scotland 1921 census records are held separately and are being digitised later in 2022 by Scotland's people. Ireland, although still part of the UK in 1921, did not take a census that year as it was in the middle of developing a partition between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. Let's have a look at some statistics. The population for Great Britain was as follows. In England and Wales, nearly 38 million. Scotland, nearly 5 million. Jersey, 49,000. Guernsey and others, 40,000. The Isle of Man, more than 60,000. Totalling in Great Britain 42,919,700 people. In Ireland, the population was, in Northern Ireland, 1,256,561 people. The Irish Free State, 4,882,497, totalling more than 4 million. Find My Past has the exclusive 3-year contract for revealing the images of the 1921 census, so there are some costs associated with having a look. For those of you that have got a 12-month Pro subscription, there is a 10% discount, and here are the costs for the images and the transcripts. In the UK, the current price is £3.50 for an image and £2.50 for a transcript. In the USA, $4.90 for an image and $3.50 for a transcript. Australian dollars, $6.60 for an image and $4.80 for a transcript. In Ireland, €4.10 for an image and €3 for a transcript. However, anybody that is in England would be able to travel to the National Archives at Kew, which is quite near South London, Manchester Central Library or the National Library of Wales. These are still digital images, but you would be able to view them for free on those 3 premises. Obviously, you'd need to be booking in advance. Let's have a look now at what could be considered census substitutes. This information is all on your handout or your syllabus. You might want to build out other information about family members to be in addition to your information from the 1921 census. So, for example, the electoral registers or the electoral rolls. By 1921, all men in the UK over 21 and many women over 30 had the right to vote, and their names would appear in the electoral registers. Women over 21 didn't get the right to vote until 1928, and the age was lowered to 18 in 1971. You might also want to have a look at school admission registers. Typically, these list addresses and a parent's name, or you might want to utilise the 1939 register through Find My Past, Ancestry and My Heritage. I really like this register because it gives dates of birth. You can get the actual birth date. You also find girls, their names are crossed out and they are given their subsequent married name. And rather usefully, this was updated until 1991 as part of the National Health Service records. So the 1939 register is really very useful. So what I'm hoping from this session is that you would be able to search for your ancestors with the help of the census, in conjunction with maps, birth, marriage and death certificates, their jobs. You might even want to have a look at wills or newspapers from that period, merged with the information about the social history of 1921. I do hope that you can locate your relative or ancestor. Very recently, in 2021, there was a census in the UK on the 21st of March. I took great care filling this one in. This was the first time that the census was conducted primarily online. People got a letter with a unique code for their address, and there were some new questions in the 2021 census. There were 2 voluntary questions for people over age 16 about their sexual orientation and gender identity. And there was a 3rd new question, which was whether people had served in the armed forces. Something that's really worrying me is that some people have suggested that the 2021 census could be the UK's last, because we've got so much information that can be gleaned from other sources, and the future population counts might be carried out in other cheaper and easier methods. So I sincerely hope not, because we all love looking through censuses. So thank you very much for listening to this presentation. I hope you've learned a lot about the 1921 census. You're very welcome to stay in touch. Penny_Walters@talk21.com. You can find my presentation schedule and information on searchmypast.co.uk. And don't forget, there are 2 books available, Ethical Dilemmas in Genealogy and The Psychology of Searching. Both of these are available in paperback or Kindle on Amazon. I do hope that you enjoy the rest of your Roots Tech Connect experience. I've got 2 other sessions as well. One is called Leaving Liverpool, which is looking at why people, mainly from Wales, went to Liverpool on their journey towards becoming Mormons with the LDS Church in Utah. So that session is called Leaving Liverpool. And my second session, also available here, is the condemnation of a person's memory, looking at pulling down statues and whether or not we are subtly doing that in our trees. So I do hope you enjoy your Roots Tech Connect experience. I hope you've enjoyed this 1921 census presentation, and take care. Find your family, discover yourself. Thank you.